Welcome back to Outdoor Exploration. Yesterday, or the day before maybe, a friend called me up and said, oh, you have to come get some chicken of the woods. I found this huge one somewhere up on the mountain, and so I went to harvest some. And he said, oh, why don't you do a mushroom video? And I said, well, I could, but you know, I'd really rather call somebody who knows a lot more. It's kind of lovely.
So excited to go see some mushrooms.
Well, and so I called Stephanie Carruthers, who, with Fletch, is going to lead the way today and show us way more than I could show you about mushrooms.
Fabulous. Let's go take a look.
Okay. Ooh, look up here.
Ooh.
Lobster mushrooms.
Oh, nice find. Lobster.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yum.
Lobster are really cool because they're kind of already halfway buried, and they pop out in this bright orange color, which is kind of like chicken of the woods. Fletch, come here, buddy. Kind of like chicken of the woods with that bright color. The cool thing about lobster mushroom is once you see one popping out of the ground, there's usually like a few more. Like there's one here.
Yeah.
And you can uncover them. There's a baby one there. We could pick that one,
A
actually.
couple more here too.
Some there, we could pick that one. I like to pop off the bit of dirt in the root and then always bury the spot. You never want to leave remnants of where you're picking your mushrooms, because other people will find your spot, and then in the next year you probably won't find your mushroom because someone else will.
Look what I found on this one.
Oh, a spider!
And her nest.
Oh my goodness, we have to leave her behind for sure.
I think I will.
Yeah. Mushrooms are host to many things. Lots of centipedes live in them. As you can see, this beautiful spider.
Yeah, I just completely terrorized her.
I know.
Sorry, I'll plant you again in a moment.
It's a good reminder that the mushrooms aren't just for us. This whole ecosystem and space is for every being. I think that's really important to think about when you're out foraging. There's another baby one here. Maybe we can just pull this one out.
And put this one in.
Yeah, and maybe put her back in gently there.
Okay. Tasty little guy. I actually finally managed to propagate some mushrooms.
I can't believe you just did that. How did you manage to do that?
I couldn't either, honestly. I don't know how it worked so well. But I knew there were the host mushrooms because, you know, lobster being a, what's it called? It's not a parasite. What's it called?
It's a bacteria that takes over a type of russula mushroom.
Right.
And then it makes it so it's edible and delicious.
Exactly. So the russulas that are the host for them, I knew grew on the bluffs near my house. So I just took a bunch of lobster mushrooms that were too old to eat and crunched them all up, and I got my kids and myself to scatter them around where the russulas grow.
Yeah.
And this year there were lobsters.
And you've never had lobster there before?
No. Well, I mean, not that I found. Wow. I've looked for them.
Yeah, amazing.
But yeah, so I guess.
That's awesome. I sprinkle them all over my yard, and I still have yet not to create any. I don't have, I haven't seen any of the russula.
That's the thing. See, I already knew the russulas were growing there.
Yeah.
That's why I'd been looking for years, thinking we've got to have lobsters, but I never found any. And it seemed to work either that, or by coincidence there are no lobsters.
Yeah, well,
I'm not sure.
Maybe. I find usually you see the type of russula that's the host for the lobster around, and for the first couple of weeks you see them, and then after you start seeing the lobster take over.
Right.
So, but that's cool. If you can, if you propagated them, kudos.
But I don't guarantee I really did, but I just feel like I did.
It feels like you did. I think
know.
that's amazing.
That's the greatest thing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So, do you have a kind of, I don't know, a moral standard by which you know when to stop harvesting? How do you know how much is enough in an area?
I've been harvesting this area for the last 5 years, and every year you always leave tons behind because there's a lot of rot. There's a lot full of worms or bugs, so you leave those behind. But in a lobster mushroom, you want them to be really nice and firm.
Yeah.
Mosquito. I can't blow it off. But you want them to be really nice and firm. So you only take the ones that are really good. But every year, this area explodes. Like, I think this is the craziest lobster year we've had yet. And last year, I pulled like 30 pounds out of this area. Like, there's a lot here. and it just keeps expanding because you pull out the mushroom and yes, it needs spores as well, but
Yeah.
the mycelial network under there is growing and growing and growing no matter what. The spores will keep carrying it to farther destinations, but for the most part, it's just getting stronger and growing wider. So with this type of mushroom, you're not going to over harvest. But when you get into mushrooms like the blue chanterelle, they're very elusive.
Right.
You don't find them very often, and those are the mushrooms you want to always leave behind. There's some mushrooms that take years to grow. So lobster, like, you're always going to end up leaving lots behind because there's always going to be rotten ones, so you never have to worry about that.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. This brilliant yellow thing on the tree up here.
One of my favorites.
Can you tell me the name of this beautiful yellow fungus?
I absolutely can. This mushroom is called dog vomit slime mold, and it's like Flagellio septica. All mushrooms have a Latin name, and it helps you differentiate which mushroom it actually is. For instance, when we talked about chicken of the woods earlier,
Yeah.
it is a chicken mushroom, but there's like 6 different chicken mushrooms. There's the hen of the woods, the chicken of the woods, fried chicken mushroom. There's, and it goes on. I could name more, but so they differentiate everything with their scientific name, and that seems really intimidating. And I'm horrible at them. I can't ever pronounce them properly. The only one I can pronounce is the no, I can't even do it now. Hypomyces,
Right.
with the lobster mushroom we just found. This is dog vomit slime mold, and it's not actually a mushroom, but it's a slime mold, and when you touch it, it's usually a lot softer and kind of gooey and slimy. And in South America, apparently they eat this, but I don't recommend eating it. They call it like a scrambled egg mushroom, but it's I put it on the no eating list.
Why?
I don't know. I just don't. Mushrooms, there's over 10,000 species of mushrooms. Maybe they're a little different up here than they're down south. Like,
Just in case.
yeah, in California, the chicken of the woods mushroom, if it grows on a eucalyptus, it can actually give people stomach aches. Whereas if it grows on a big leaf maple here, totally safe. You're probably not going to get a stomach ache at all. So they differentiate. And also, there's so many lookalikes of the 8 major deadly mushrooms in BC, which we do have, and we do have them on Bowen Island. So just be careful. But the adventurers I follow on the internet, they definitely try things like this, but I'm not ready for that. I still don't trust it, and it looks disgusting.
Well, also it's called dog vomit slime.
Yeah, so there we have it.
But
it's cool to look at.
it's super cool to look at.
Yeah, like how vibrant, especially from an artist's point of view in nature. Pretty cool.
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what else we can find.
Maybe Fletch can find something. Come on, buddy.
So here's one of our many burnt out cedar shells.
So cool.
You can feel the kind of
charcoal.
squeaky charcoal. Yeah, it's like 100 years old approximately. A lot of Bowen Island burned around 100 years ago.
And so obviously now we're experiencing all of this smoke coming in from the California fires and all of that, but you were explaining a bit earlier like how these burn.
Yeah, it's shocking to me.
Yeah.
Quite often cedar trees apparently catch fire at the top and then burn down the middle, so that from the outside, I guess, unless you're at the top, you can't see there's a fire, but they have to actually cut into them to fall them. When they cut them open, it's like a furnace.
Yeah, so dangerous.
So dangerous.
So crazy. Like, there's so much danger and uncertainty and like damage and devastation with the wildfires, but all of these forest fires next spring will bring morel mushrooms, which is one of the biggest mushroom crop for Canada and the US, because we off-ship them overseas, and you get droves of them after the forest fires. And there was this one year, probably like 5 or 6 years ago now, a couple of my harvesting friends were out near Williams Lake, and it's pretty like poor out in that area and remote, and they had picked about 1,000 pounds of morels, and it was a really good season because there had been a lot of forest fires the year before.
That is a lot.
So many.
I can't even picture how much that is.
It's 1,000 pounds is a lot. Like, put a dollar perspective on that, that's around $30,000 cash they were gonna go make for these morels. So they were camping, and all of a sudden in the middle of the night they just hear something like jimmying the truck, and it starts, and Tim could hear them like kind of driving away, and he ran out of the tent, and the guy stealing the truck, one of his co-partners, whoever, bear maced Tim. And he, like, for weeks he was showering and it was just burning his whole body, and like,
but they lost it.
They lost the truck, they lost the morels and the money, and yeah, it was super shitty. And his kids were with him too, and they're around my age. They were probably around 20. And they were in the trailer, and Tim was in the tent because he wanted to stay close to the truck, but it got
trailer
stolen.
Not attached to truck?
No.
Good.
Yeah, not attached to that truck. So yeah, some ruthless stuff can happen in the mushroom world too.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. So crazy what happens from forest fires.
Yeah.
Thanks for
teaching me about those. And what happens from money? I mean, seriously. Like, the mushrooms are worth the money.
Yeah, it's so wild.
Yeah.
Weird world.
It is. Yeah.
Anyway.
On that note, what else will we find?
So we found these beautiful mushrooms. These type of Ganoderma, but an artist conch known as in our world.
Yeah.
And we thought we'd take a seat beside them and just talk about how beautiful they are. These are a mushroom that used to be used for drawing art on in like the 70s. And they're also known, some people will make teas and tinctures out of them, but they take a long time to grow. So I always just think they're a really nice mushroom to just leave on the tree. And they look similar to a few other bracket fungus that, if you can't identify it, why break it off of the tree and ruin it? Just leave it there and watch it grow peacefully.
That's right.
Yeah, they're really cool. They actually grow off of a tree.
I'm wondering, I have a friend who recently said she wasn't aware that mushrooms are a different thing from plants.
Yeah.
Could you explain what the difference is? I mean...
Yeah, in a simple way. Mushrooms are not an animal classification, and they're not in the plant classification. They have their own kingdom, and it's the fungi kingdom. And they have this mycelial network that goes into the soil, and it communicates with the plants and the trees around it, and they all live in this symbiotic relationship. But mushrooms are like a connector where, Fletchy, let's not wreck the mushrooms. Come on. They're a connector, and they help support the regrowth and rebirth of the plants and the things that grow throughout the season in the trees. A lot of mushrooms, when a tree dies, are here for a purpose of breaking it down, and then you get this fruiting body from the tree, whereas this mushroom, the mycelium is like in throughout the tree, and it will connect through to the ground somehow. But like the lobster mushrooms we found earlier, they actually, like in the soil, if you grab soil, sometimes you can see like little white veins that grow through it, and that's actually mycelium from mushrooms. And different kinds of mushroom will connect and work together or fight against each other to take over a certain zone.
Right.
But yeah, they're a whole other kingdom, which is pretty fascinating. And
so is the mycelium actually roots, or is it the body of the mushroom? And what would be the difference? Or are we just thinking of these things in terms of plants and we really shouldn't?
Maybe we do think of them as plants and we really shouldn't, but I guess it is kind of like a root system, but it goes way farther than a root system with a plant. Like it's almost like the internet, like these waves under the ground that keep everything moving and communicating. And they also have like the Armorillia, like honey mushroom species, grow for like football field sized of the mycelium underground that you would never know. And it can like sense you when you're walking. Like it's a whole other world that people are so unaware of. And
so even when we don't see the fruit on the ground, there could be mycelium under our feet.
And it's working, and the fruit is just its offspring, like once a year or a few times a year that it pops out to help pass on spores and help keep the mycelium strong so that it keeps growing and kind of breaking down the forest and regenerating the forest.
Unless it's a Ganoderm, in which case it can stay for years.
Yeah, and that's true too. Like some mushrooms will come up every year, and through the ground. Like you won't see what tree host it's from. Whereas this mushroom, it can stay like this for, this one's probably been here for like 6 years.
So can you tell me about these rings? I mean, is there anything that they can tell us about the mushroom?
Yeah, so I mean, maybe the age, actually maybe it does tell the age. I don't know that for sure, but I just thought about it like a tree, because say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like this could be 6 or 7 years old. I know it's for sure 5.5 years because I watch them all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, every time they grow bigger, they get more ring expansion, and that's what's kind of cool about bracket fungus. And there's hundreds of different kinds of ganodermas and these types of bracket fungus and artist fungus.
I mean,
there.
we've passed what, like 30 different mushrooms at least today, just on a little trail, right?
Yeah, just like on a 10-minute trail that we've been walking on for slowly for a few hours. So yeah, it's pretty remarkable, and it just goes to show like how diverse the like fungi kingdom is.
So that was a fabulous walk. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
I am thinking we've probably covered a maximum of 1% of all the many mushrooms that we have here.
Yeah, there's
Am
so
I right?
many. There's so much to know and so little time. So
Yeah. So if people are exploring or just curious about what they're finding, is there any way they can contact you?
Absolutely, they can. I always encourage people messaging me if they want. I can't always get back to everyone right away, but you can go to my website and there's a message box on there, and you can send an email and then I can reply that way. It's probably best. It's wildforaged.com.
Okay, I'll put a link in the description.
Okay, yeah, and on Instagram and Facebook it's Wild Forage, and I get messages there too. So
Great.
I'm happy to help.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Happy exploring.